Hey everyone, this is Matt. Yeah, Matt here. I will be filling in for Agro today. He definitely wanted to be here. He just had a personal conflict since we had to change the time at the last minute. It is September 25th, 2023, um, and we have a little bit of a different town hall today. Obviously, we have a bunch of significant announcements that I'm going to be talking about. Um, After that, we're going to turn it over to Nate and Farpatrod and an investigator to talk about the status of land and some stuff going on there as normal. And then I want to turn it over to questions, as quickly as we can, so we give the community some time to weigh in and ask what they want to ask. Um, so thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for being okay with the time change at the last minute. And I'm going to start going through the announcement posts that we recently posted on our Hive blog. Everyone can find that. It's linked in the official announcements in Discord, and our Hive blog entitled "Staff Reductions and Restructuring Announcement." Um, so as you probably read, uh, we have been forced to downsize the organization once again. Um, it really sucks. You know, I'm angry and I'm frustrated, as I imagine a lot of you are, about the decisions and the steps and the things that have happened over the last year that have got us here. I feel like ultimately it was all entirely avoidable, which makes it all that much more frustrating. Um, but regardless, you know, we're not stopping. We're not going to be done. We are going to learn from our mistakes. We are going to make the necessary changes, um, and we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Um, and so one of the ways that we're going to be doing that, um, is we're going to be splitting up the organization, as we mentioned in the post, into two different companies. There's going to be a new company created called Invenium Corporation that's going to be responsible for all of the Genesis League sports stuff, Genesis League goals, soccer game, the Invenium platform, and everything related to that. Everything pretty much other than Splinterlands and the Soul Keep tower defense game, which is part of Splinterlands. One of the biggest issues that we've had over the past year and a half, in my opinion, and others, is that we've kind of taken on way too much stuff. So we kind of have these two completely different sides of the business: the Invenium and Genesis League side, and the Splinterland side. And it's been extremely difficult trying to juggle that between our relatively small team, and especially the leadership team not being able to really focus on each of those different products and jumping back and forth between them. You know, also from an accounting and finance legal perspective, these were all just kind of jumbled in together. So by splitting them apart, going forward, this new Invenium Corporation is going to have separate bank accounts. It's going to have separate wallets. It's going to have, separate expenses. It's going to have separate contracts, everything. And that will also help ensure that, people who are Splinterlands players and SPS investors and all that, the funds that they put into Splinterlands are only going to go to Splinterlands products, and vice versa with Invenium too. So it'll be clearly split out among those two different sides of the business. The other major change is that, Agrod is going to be the CEO of the Invenium Corporation, and he is going to be fully focused on that company and on its products and on building that out, and not having to kind of jump back and forth and dealing with the products of and issues with both businesses. And I have been asked by the board of directors to take over, leading the Splinterland side of the business. So going forward, I will be 100% focused just on Splinterlands. Making sure we are well capitalized, making sure we keep our expenses under control, and making sure our products are awesome, um, and our community is taken care of, and we hopefully create lots of value and fun for everybody involved. Um, and one of the main ways I aim to do that is by kind of changing the way that at least the Splinterland side of the business operates. So one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, in addition to kind of splitting our time between these two sides of the business, was the way we've kind of been operating with this very short-term mindset for a long time. It's been talked about, raising money for almost 2 years now. That's never materialized. We reduced our expenses in a similar way somewhat last year, but we never really got ourselves into a position where we were profitable or even break even again. And we were never able to focus on the long term, like how do we over the long run, over many years, build up this great platform in this ecosystem. And that's what you really need to do, in order to be successful. It's very, very difficult to be successful when you're always worried about how much revenue you need the next month or the next 6 months even, and worried about running out of cash, and not being able to pay your expenses. So going forward, we're going to be changing that. And my goal is to ensure that we really can just take a step back, take a breather, and focus on a really good long term game plan. And there's even a bunch of ways where we could forego some expenses, some revenue in the short term that can really help us out in the long term. In the past, I felt like we always prioritized revenue in the short term. That's hurt us in the long term. We've been paying for that over the last year, all the pre-sales that we did for products that haven't even started being developed and that are years away. Kind of got us into this situation where we're just trying to get revenue in order to keep, uh, our expenses being paid, which were more than we could handle, and we just kept having to do that over and over, and it hurt us, with the community and with everybody, over the long term, because people put a lot of money, into all these things that have yet to be delivered on. And so we did get some revenue in the short term, but it's hurt us significantly over the long term, and we're coming to pay for that now. So that's going to change, is what my focus and my promise, to the community is, with me leading Splinterlands. It's not going to work that way. So that's part of why we absolutely needed to do this big reduction in expenses right now, because I can't run a business in a way where I keep having to worry about running out of money or needing to like rush things out to get revenue. So we got our expenses down to a much more reasonable level. And I am also going to do whatever it takes to raise investment capital for the business to give us a big additional extra cushion, even if things, the market or whatever goes horribly bad for a while. I want us to be completely covered and still able to focus on our, multi-year long-term plan. I'm very confident, even though we as an organization have failed to raise money over the last couple years. I'm confident that, at this point we'll be able to do it. Um, because honestly, we have to. Uh, so as far as Splinterlands specifically, the roadmap for the product, it doesn't change much. Certainly there's going to be some shakeup and some things that are going to be difficult to work out internally. Things may be delayed in the short term, but our core team is still here. They're still doing a fantastic job. We still expect the Land 1.5 release to happen in the very near future. We're going to talk about that a little later on the call. After that, the next focus is Rebellion, which I'm going to talk about shortly. And then the other focuses of the business are going to be the same. We have to attract and retain new players. That's another thing we've been talking about for a long time, but that's not something that brings in short-term revenue, so we've never been able to prioritize it. But if we are successful in getting it to a place where our business is, at least break even, not losing money, and if we're able to bring in investment capital, we can take a step back and say, let's figure out how we can attract and retain new players over the long term, which is going to just make our business and everybody in the ecosystem, you know, should do extremely well if we're able to really focus on that and not worry about the fact that it's not going to bring in a lot of revenue right away. Um, Obviously, Soul Keep, uh, you know, we need to get that released. We need to make sure, that the players who bought packs a year ago at this point, um, get to use them and get the value out of that, and hopefully we can turn that into an exciting additional project. that's part of the Splinterlands ecosystem, and a a template for having other projects like that become part of the Splinterlands ecosystem. And then there, as always, there's the SPS validators, and still building out the whole SPS DAO and that system, to start letting the players kind of run this whole system and own it, is really important. So those are still the high level goals. There's a lot of little bits and pieces in there, um, but it's going to take us a little time once we do land and rebellion, to kind of get ourselves in a position to build a much more like robust long-term plan on how we're going to do all those things and kind of integrate them together, within the Splinterlands ecosystem. So I want to jump next to talking about rebellion in particular, because this I think is one of the most exciting things, that is happening in the near future. Um, I'm not going to talk about, we have a lot of really cool stuff that's going to be included in Rebellion, like like new game mechanics, that are going to really, I think, be just add a lot of fun to the game, agency, player skill, engagement, all that stuff. I'm not going to talk about that right now. That stuff's going to be released, hopefully in the near future, when it gets closer to the actual pre-sale starting. But what I do want to talk about is, a change in how rebellion packs, or how we're planning to sell rebellion packs, which is all goes into what I was just talking about more of a sustainable multi-year long-term plan versus trying to get revenue into the company, as quickly as possible. So I plan to propose, that rebellion be owned and sold by the DAO, just like Rift Watchers is. Um, and in return, that the DAO effectively hire the Splinterlands company to build, develop, and distribute, the Rebellion edition through the Splinterlands game platform. So this goes. I feel that this goes along with our goal that we've kind of always had, to allow the players to own the whole game itself. Like the DAO should ultimately own everything at some point, not just players owning the individual assets. And it's a very different way of doing things, right? That's a little scary to some people, but that's honestly what I'm here for. I think what a lot of people are here for is we're going to try this. I want to be one of the first where we have a decentralized ownership of the entire game, and then that DAO can hire, Splinterlands. It can hire other development companies, potentially to build out the game, to build out the services and products that are needed, and to give value to those assets. So this is a great. We have things like Splinterlands, sorry, like Rift Watchers, that are a great way to kind of start going in that direction. I think this takes it in that direction even more, and it'll be really beneficial, overall. So I plan to submit a governance proposal, um, that would ask that the DAO pay $250,000 from its treasury to the Splinterlands organization to develop the Rebellion edition. Um, and in return, uh, the DAO would be the owner and seller of all Rebellion packs, and we would ask for a 50-50 revenue split, in order to keep funding the development of the game going forward. So, this that would mean that half of all the revenue, all the sales from all of the Rebellion packs over the entire life of the set would go to the DAO. So that would in DEC tokens, and that would effectively, take all that DEC out of circulation, and I think that would be a huge boon and benefit to the value of the SPS token and the DEC token and just the DAO in general in this ecosystem. And that type of thing is only possible if we get our expenses under control, right? And I think that's part of what the layoffs and things and additional expense reductions that we've announced today, is to allow us to do these things that, in my opinion, will you know get us this long-term, uh, sustainable success over the future. So, stay tuned and look out for that governance proposal in the near future. I would sincerely hope that that gets approved, because it's, for $250,000 upfront, the DAO could ultimately get, some significant amount more than that from half of the sales of all Rebellion packs. So it seems to me like it would be just a huge win for the DAO, and ultimately, like that's who I primarily work for, right? I've taken over, running Splinterlands, the company right now, but, um, ultimately, this was started because I want to be a part of a game like this. I want to play something like this. I want to own assets and tokens in an ecosystem like this. So everything we do is more about how we give more value to the DAO and ultimately to the players of the game, because that's how our company is going to be successful as well. And I think we got away from that a lot over the past year or so out of necessity. But that's something I want to completely change around, and I would hope that the community agrees that that's a much better way to go about things. And my goal is to make sure our company is well enough capitalized and has low enough expenses that we can actually do that, and we're not forced back into kind of the old way of doing things. So I don't know. Like I said in the post, like this just it really sucks. We're kind of at the point where we had no other choice as an organization to other than to reduce expenses significantly, just to ensure obviously that we can keep operating, which we should definitely be able to do at this point. But the people that we had to let go, a lot of them. A lot of them are active community members, players. They've been around for a long time. They're people who love this product and this game and they like working here. So there's like only bad things about having to let people like that go. I would say obviously I hope that we get into a position where we're growing again in the future and we can bring some of them back. I can't guarantee that's the case, but that is going to be my full-time job and goal going forward, is to see that that happens. But ultimately, despite as bad as that is, I really do think that these changes are what we need. We needed them a long time ago. I guess better late than never. But now they're happening. We have Aggroed specifically focused on Invenium and goals and all of that stuff, and me specifically focused on Splinterlands and our teams and our funds and our investors. We're going to split everything and just so we can really focus our attention. That's one of the things you hear from, or that I at least hear from a lot of great business leaders and CEOs and things over time, is that one of the most important things you can do is focus. I think that's one of our biggest mistakes that we've had over the last year and a half, is a very much a lack of focus. Too many things all over the place. That's changing starting today. And I hope that everyone is kind of on board that that is the right way to go and should hopefully lead to a much better outcome in the future. Um, so that's kind of it for the update for me. You can read most of the same thing but more details in the post on our blog. I do want to turn it over now to Nate and Farpatrod, an investigator, to talk about land, because despite all this stuff, we are still here. We are still working. We still love this stuff. We are still planning to get all this stuff out to players and have some really exciting, awesome features out. So I want them to show their progress. You've all seen a lot of it on the Mavs server, and just talk about what's going on with the biggest expansion we've ever had.
Yeah, and we did not rehearse any of this. But so it's kind of a free for all. So I would say, and Neil and investigators should feel free to just chime in whenever they want. And but I would say that just to mimic Matt's thoughts and some of the thoughts that are being expressed in the Mavs chat right now for town hall, is that yeah, that cutting back is horrible, but as Matt pointed out, it's good. This is a good thing. To be leaner and meaner is a good thing. Um, I mean, I remember back in the day where it was just like the development team you could count on one hand, and yet things were fine. We kept pushing product out. We put updates. We what I'd like to think is in a sense we revolutionized gaming and Web3, and we were part of that pioneering effort. At least Matt was. I was just making things look pretty and whatnot. But I think that fast forward to today, we're well over a handful of people. I mean, the company is still a company. There's still lots of talented, passionate people in the company, and we're going to keep moving forward. all the things that after the changes earlier today, creative. We've been internally looking at the timelines and really, I don't see much change. Meaning, land the devs are still there. We're still working on it. Trying to contemplate plans for the future, whether it's a major card set or otherwise. All of these things, the wheels are still turning for creative. We're still doing UX. We're still doing UI. We're still doing art and all animation, all the rest of the stuff to make this as beautiful and engaging and as wonderful to play of an ecosystem. It's just that the thing that's missing is that dark cloud, that dark, heavy cloud of like, oh no, I hope we have enough runway. I hope we have enough, money in the back pocket to kind of keep things moving forward. And no one wants to be where feel like you're making the train track as the train's moving. That sucks. And so I really appreciate that Matt has made every effort to try to adapt to the situation. That's no easy task. Trying to adapt to market fluctuations and uh, just the industry in general. It's tough, but we're still here. We're still fighting, and I just want to let the community know, at least from a creative side, we're very excited to keep getting you guys stuff that is just looks better and better and better. If you've looked at previous card sets or previous things we've done, I think Gold Matter sometimes goes on Twitter and he shares, hey, remember back in the day, year one or year two, here's what it looked like then. Here's what it looks like now. We have no intentions of stopping that improvement. We're always looking for ways to grow, to improve, to be better, to raise the production quality and value of what you guys are getting in your hands. That has not changed. And you have my promise, my word, that we're going to do everything possible to make sure that the next update we make is going to be better than the update that came before. So just want to say that. Now I will say that before we dig into land stuff, we do have a Rift Watcher airdrop coming up. That hasn't changed. We still got an airdrop coming up, and I think like in a couple of weeks or something. And even though the stats aren't finalized, I mean, Matt, are you okay with me sharing the artwork for the character?
Yeah, yeah, share away.
Let's see. So this is let's see. I'll drop a wallpaper with the new character, and you guys can kind of like theorize what the stats and abilities will be. And then when the blog post is released with the final stats and abilities, you could see how close you were to guessing. Maybe there could be some potential contests or something that could happen um, to kind of like see who guesses closest. But yeah, that's immolation. So clearly fire element. That'll be the next airdrop. And from what I've seen from the potential stats and abilities, which I'm not going to leak, but this guy seems like something to be excited about. Like I am personally looking forward to playing with this guy. It's going to be freaking cool. Um, and so there's the Rift Watcher side of things. I will say for land, as we dig into land, um, right now, most of what constitutes is quote 1.5. Neil and Harry and all the people involved with land have gotten what they needed from creative, but creative hasn't stopped looking at land. There are lots of things we're working on, whether it's the League of Verico prefix titles and how those look on the screen and how those achievements are unlocked as you unlock different things that you do in land, whether it's own so many Rooney or whether it's you own a keep or castle or you have so much research, all that stuff. We're figuring out how it's going to look and how it's going to function, and it looks cool. Like I can't wait for you guys to see it. Other things like might be just quality of life. For those of you who have been a Mav and you're on the Mavs test server and you see, well, I can kind of figure out how to do this and how to do that. We are sensitive to the fact that we only want to improve it and add polish and make things easier and more intuitive. So part of those things would be like, let me see if I have anything. Here's a quality of life, like trying to get more time crystals or more grain or more cores or things of that nature. Here's a screenshot of something that'll come after 1.5 because it's not really high priority to making it function, but it's something that will give players access to a shop page, that's dedicated to land supplies. And we'll add to it as, maybe as we go into 2.0 and more supplies and more things that people need to kind of like make their way through land. We want to make it as easy as possible to find those in one central location instead of trying to find where in the heck in the land interface do I go to buy or do this thing. We hear you. We're working on it. Um, Things like that aren't stopping. We're still doing it, and our intention is that as soon as 1.5 finally goes live, then we are going to be ready with stuff sitting on the shelf for the devs to tackle, so that we can continue to update land and make it better and better and better. Um, and so I'll stop there for the creative side. I'm sure that Harry, Neil, the players would love to hear any progress being made thus far, because I personally check out Farpatrod's updates on the land channel all the time, and it's just like there's constantly stuff going on. So what's up?
Yeah, so I was really hoping last weekend to have pushed a new build to Babs. Unfortunately, we pushed a bunch internally, and we just didn't get to the point where it was uh, just, where I wanted to push it out. So we're very close to a new build to go out. There's been a ton of things fixed. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're down to like the last couple issues on the bug tracking list. So I'm hoping that we could hopefully get a build today, maybe tomorrow morning, that would wrap up most of those major bugs, and then just have a couple little things in there. And then it's going to, like Nate said, adding in some of the quality of life things that Creative has delivered to us already, to make your guys' experience better. The other things are just touching up UI data to make sure everything's synced between the front and the back, and just making sure this is the greatest experience we can deliver. There's this is a big expansion. There's a lot of code, so making these changes, we have to make sure we don't affect everything else we've done. So it's not a trivial experience to get this done. Like staking your deck affects everything else that's already done on your plot. So there's lots of little pieces involved that move together, and it's almost there. So just be a little more patient, and I hopefully will give you a build that you guys will really like, and then we'll be able to push a couple little UI builds out there that give you the rest of the little tweaks.
Yeah, what I was thinking was that, 1.6, as we've been structuring it and planning it out, I was thinking that, unlike 1.5, 1.5 is like if you take out one piece, the whole thing just stops working, right? That's why we decided on the pieces that need to be part of 1.5. But when I look at, quote, 1.6 or whatever we're going to end up calling it, it's kind of like an assortment of different things that doesn't necessarily have to be rolled out all at once. Meaning, if you do one and not the other, the thing doesn't break. It's like, so I'm thinking almost like none of this has been defined. I mean, it's up to ultimately Matt's decision, but I'm almost thinking like a lot of this stuff in 1.6, as soon as we kind of get this 1.5 in a rearview mirror, it wouldn't surprise me if, every couple of weeks there's a new update. Like you guys have had to wait a while for 1.5, but I'm thinking if creative can catch up, have enough stuff sitting on the shelf, I mean, it's possible that we just like, instead of waiting for everything in 1.6 to be done, we just kind of like knock one thing at a time, right? I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I second that. I don't think there's any point in waiting if there's no dependency between the pieces. So once the initial 1.5 is out, I'd say we go just release piece by piece, change by change, until we got everything.
Yeah, and I think that really lends itself well to the lean, mean fighting machine that we are becoming. Is that, yeah, we're going to get back to hopefully more stable, ongoing updates that people can enjoy, and everyone's probably worried about. Oh no, delays. There's less people working. We're not. What's going to happen? The train is coming to a stop. I mean, I don't see it coming to a stop. I think it's going to go fine.
Yeah, once 1.5 is fully out there, everything else should just kind of fall into place. This has all been set up kind of like Legos, right? Where these are the base blocks, and once they're set down in that foundation, everything else should just plop right in on top of them, and everything should work. So you'll start seeing new pieces, as long as creative can keep up with us, come out very fast.
Well, I guess I'll say something to. So just as a note on this, we're not doing an update tomorrow because pretty much everybody is either working on Land 1.5 release or Rebellion, so we don't have any small updates to push out. Um, we're down to a little over, I'm looking at the board, maybe a dozen tickets for 1.5, though some of them are, realistically the same issues with, making sure DEC staking numbers are right, and there's like 4 or 5 tickets about that. And we've got maybe 7 or 8 in QA. So hopefully we will be able to knock those out fairly soon. I don't know if we're gonna do any more updates until Land 1.5 is ready. I guess that'll be something to discuss with Matt after this reorganization. But hopefully the next thing we push out the door is going to be the Land release.
That's my expectation as well.
I don't know if Neil wants to add any more onto where he feels we are with it.
Yeah, like Harry said, a lot of those bugs that are left are just duplicates of each other, specifically around like the dark energy and use. And those are the last things we're working out. We hope to, in this next build we put out, we will not enable Harvest All, but it will be coming in a build this week. So once that's there, then it's just making sure all the deck numbers line up, and those are the last little things we have to do. And I'm feeling pretty confident about us wrapping up everything into QA by the end of the week, hopefully. If not over the weekend, since some of us can't seem to take the weekend. So we'll probably get several builds out this week, though, definitely, because I want everyone to go through all the bugs we have fixed, and just see all the changes that have been put in place, because it's been a lot.
I should talk a little bit, I feel, about Land 2.0 and just generally the future of Land. I know there's been so much focus on 1.5, which makes sense because it's very close to the finish line. People get to play with it on Mav server, which is fantastic. But I've had a few people reach out to me and say like, they think Land isn't, 1.5 is going to be not that great. There's not that much to do. There's only a few resources and yada yada yada. And like, yes, that Land 1.5 is just like an interim initial version to test out this whole system, all this stuff that they've been building and developing, see how it works, see how the players respond. The real it's not anywhere close to the full vision of what we're trying to do. So if you're just looking at the plan for 1.5 and being like, yeah, that's not so great, like um, you're kind of missing the big picture, the huge picture. So like a lot of what I've been doing behind the scenes, as many people have guessed, is I've been working very hard on the first draft of the Land 2.0 white paper. And that's where you get kind of everything. It's where you're going to get the full game of Land, in that there's going to be tons of different resources, all these different buildings you can build, all these different things you can do, and the game is going to be very much around resource management and figuring out what you want to produce and how you want to produce it and what's the best way to min max your stuff. Keeping up on sort of the meta of Land. Are too many people producing one resource or providing liquidity in a certain region? Do you repurpose your buildings to change to something else? How do you leverage the infrastructure and all these things? And so I know you guys haven't seen that yet, other than what we've talked about in the past about what we're planning. But I hope to release a first draft of the phase 2 white paper, within the next month or so. So shortly after phase 1.5 is out, so everyone can see like what phase 1.5 is really just leading up to, because it's massive and I think it's awesome. And I personally, I've said this many times, I'm going to say it again. I am going to be going after research extremely heavily, in phase 1.5, because kind of everything around Land is going to be focused on the secret of Praetoria. right? And research is going to be one of many different ways that you'll be able to contribute to that. But that's where eventually all the rewards are going to come from, beyond the item and spell cards, which and it's going to also factor into the item and spell cards too. So, um, you know, the research is the way right now in 1.5 where you can sort of get a head start on that huge part of the expansion. Um, and then, I know we've talked about items and spell cards a lot, but those I really feel like we've started actually to play around with how those are going to work, how the gameplay is going to work with those things, what types of effects they can have on the gameplay, the whole like how it's going to be another stage in the battle, and you're gonna start hearing some more about that pretty soon. Um, it having tested and tried some of that out, it's awesome. Like it makes the game itself so much more fun and so much more interesting. This whole concept of after you see your team and your opponent's team being able to make decisions at that point, having to like sort of play the battle out in your mind a little bit and say like, oh crap, I'm probably going to lose because they have a lot of magic attack or whatever it is. And then you can like make decisions and try to change that. I mean, there's situations where you might be like, crap, I have a lot of 5 attack monsters and they have a force field taunt, mycelic slip spawn. So I'm gonna get crushed. And you might even have the option to like debuff your own team, right? So you think, oh, I never want to reduce the attack of my monsters, but there's like all those crazy situations that just, in my mind, make the game so much more fun and engaging. And all of that, all of those items and spell cards that do that, you know, having land and contributing, your resources, your money, your time is how you're going to produce those. I'll just reiterate, like we're not selling packs of those, right? So when they come out, if you have participated in land, got a bunch of land plots, put your workers on it, done all that stuff, you can get a head start in 1.5. Like you're going to be the one producing those cards. Other people are going to have to buy them from you. um Obviously, like none of that's new or different. I'm just like reiterating that because as we've started to really get into designing out the land system and how that's going to work, designing out how the gameplay is going to work with these new cards, these new type of decisions in the game, it's like it just is starting to click into place in my mind, like, and solidifying how actually cool this is and what the real value is, uh, for all parts of the game, but especially for land, is you're the going to be the gatekeepers. Landowners are going to be the gatekeepers of this entire new thing. So, yeah, I know we talked about a lot of crappy stuff today, but the ultimate goal is still very much in play. And it just seems, in my opinion, to just get better and better over time. And it frustrates me, trust me, just as much as it frustrates all of you, how long all this stuff takes. And I'm really trying to do everything I can to figure out how we can get it out sooner, how we can get pieces of it out, how we can let people try things out and get a taste of this stuff at least. And we have some of that stuff, that may even be part of Rebellion that we're gonna be, announcing soon. So, um, that's what keeps me going, personally, right? I mean, honestly, like if it wasn't for stuff like that, I'd be like, why am I here? Why am I taking this over? Why am I doing all this crap and having to like lay off people and deal with all the difficulties that come with running a company, which I don't like. Obviously, some people like that stuff and they're good at it. That's not my thing. My thing is like designing land and economies and that type of stuff. But I'm like, I need to do this. I need to help us out and do that because like I need this to happen. Like I need these new gameplay mechanics. I need this whole land expansion, the full vision in my mind. Like I'm like, I need to make this happen. I need to figure out how we can raise investment so I can stop worrying about money and just like we can go build this. And I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to do that, at this point. So I wanted to add more color behind all of this stuff that's happening. So if you're like, Lamb 1.5 comes out and you're like, I can only get 3 resources. This isn't so great. Yeah, it's just a little preview. It's a teaser of like everything else we're building. And my hope is that these future phases are going to be much quicker because, like Neil said, we're building the base of this whole entire system. Like all the harvesting and all this stuff, it's all going to work the same. We're just going to add different buildings and different resources and different features. But my hope is that, once we get this initial like base foundation work out of the way, all the other stuff is going to start falling into place. More quickly, even with a reduced team than we would have expected. And we'll start to see this all come to fruition. So I'm going to stop with that there. Um, Nate, did you want to play a cool video or anything, or I'll give you
Uh,
a bathroom break if you wanted to do that. So no pressure.
no, like, yeah, we could definitely do that. We did have a it's funny because so a lot of the stuff that we want to do for land, like right now, if you look on the Mavs test server, then you will see um basically the beginnings of the infrastructure for what land can become. And I've been very my heart's been warmed, I'm sure Farbertrides as well, and hearing all the great feedback from players who have been able to interact now with the 1.5 mechanics. Because if you guys are happy with that, you guys have no idea. Like I know that Matt, stays up at night thinking about what land is going to become and what that will actually mean. And I don't know how many people can see the promised land like that. But that's what I see at 1.5. I see it's just the beginning taste of what it is intended to be, and I could see it. And part of what the creative side tries to do is to try to give you guys just a glimpse of what we see of not what land is now, but where land is going. And part of that is being there on the ground in Pretoria and imagining what that would be like, and what does it mean when you go in with the slot management screen and you're putting your cards in these slots and you're clicking save. I mean, that's very rudimentary front end mechanics that hopefully over time will polish and make more engaging and improve the storytelling of that. But in the meantime, just to get you guys' heads in kind of the same space as we are, so you can see what we're seeing, then I don't know, Ron, do you have the teaser queued up to share? And for those of you, I should probably give you guys a minute anyways, because I don't think there's a way to share it on Discord. So if you're on Discord right now and you want to see the video, it's just a little teaser trailer. It's not like this long extended experience. Then just go to YouTube and you could view it there.
Can you post the link?
Let's see.
While we play it, and I'll be right back. I wanna have an empty bladder for question time.
Oh, la 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 la. And I will also say that we're going to try to probably cut it short pretty soon so that we have as much time as possible for questions and answers. But I know that Flowey, like I see him a little depressed about like, oh no, does that mean like, I was beginning to hope that Boss Mouncers was gonna like at least see a light at the end of the tunnel, and now we're squashing that hope, and like nothing else is gonna be worked on, and just like, dude, I everything's TBD. I can't. I wish like creative works on stuff that is like so far ahead that usually I can't talk about the planning and the prototyping and the discussions being had. But I will say, like, even as recent as like this past week, I was talking to Matt about ideas that would lay the foundation for things, like that, where you're going to war against a bigger, boss type creature, or this, that, and the other. Basically, all the stuff, not just that happens with the production of land in the player owned regions, but the wilds in between those player owned regions. What's going on there? What are the stories that we're telling? Some of you guys have seen little blog posts here and there talking about new splinters. Who are the Dark Eternals? What's the Chaos Empire? What's their government and this and that? There's a lot of cool content that is laying the foundation for the world building, in which, yes, lots of cool things could happen in those wilds in between the player owned regions. And I want those things to happen. No one is letting go of those things. If anything, I promise you, I will be championing every week, every meeting. Yes, let's get there. Let's do those things, because that's where creative really thrives, is in those areas where we get a chance to tell some stories, and really hook the player into the game as if they're really a battle mage and they're living in this fantasy world. That's what I want you guys to feel like. So we're not letting go of those things. If you can just be, you've already been patient, Flowey, but if you be patient a little bit longer than I promised you, we'll get there. Okay, so all right. Awesome. So I would say do a quick countdown, and Rondon will play it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
These lands are my bones, these waters my blood. I've got Pretoria in my soul.
So there you go. There's a quick little tease to whet your appetite for what's to come. But essentially, we're basically looking to tell a story here. We have the ability to produce grain or produce this or produce that, but we want to tell the story that, hey, you really are a battle mage. There is an empire known as the Chaos Empire who's conquered the world, and under cover of darkness, with the assistance of the Rift Watchers, you are being granted the ability to utilize these summoning stations, something that holds a core on top, something that powers the cards that are slotted in there, and basically acts as the same thing as a summoner in their arena that is typically the sport of the Splinterlands. How can we use it to not only produce and make the world better, but potentially in the future, with upcoming rebellion, help to overthrow this maniacal, tyrannical leader known as Silas of the Rift. So we are, we're working up to it. We're building a little bit of traction, and we're hoping that you guys will join us on this epic adventure as the story unfolds. But we'll get more to you as it's produced.
Cool. Thank you, Nate, and Farpatrod and Investigator for all that. I mean, as always, the graphics and art that you guys put together looks awesome. 1.5 is really coming along well. I think everyone can see that we're getting pretty close to the finish line there, although that's kind of more like a starting line, as we just talked about, because there's going to be lots and lots more after that. So I guess at this point, we're going to go into question and answers. I want to leave like extra time for that because I know there's going to be a lot of them, and I want to get to them all. First, there are a bunch of questions from before that we put together, the pre-recorded questions. I know those are before all the announcements, so I do want to get to them though. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly, and then I want to open it up for questions in Discord chat. So the first question I have is about changes to the guild membership system, and it's a long one with a lot of details. But I do want to say, yes, I agree that there's a lot of guild changes, membership and otherwise, that are sorely needed. These are the type of things where our focus for right now, for like kind of the rest of this year, is going to be land and rebellion primarily. But afterwards, when we have more time to, like I said, put a more longer term plan in place, guilds is going to be a very important part of that. There's a next question about card combining on land and whether over combined cards can get a benefit beyond like a max level card. Initially, we had said no, but now that there's this, we've instated the 100K max for each plot, I think that would be good to reconsider. So I think that's a good question, and we should consider if like over combining cards should get additional production on land. There's a question about what is the proportion between packs available and active players expected for the sets done or future ones. For example, how many players would you expect per each 1 million packs? I mean, that's a hard one. I don't think we can like equate players to packs sold because there's a lot more variables in there. Like 2 years ago, the same amount of players would probably purchase significantly more packs and use significantly more packs than the same number of players now. So I guess I don't look at it with like on a players basis. Although we do look at like the number of players and like average card levels that those players have to kind of estimate how many packs we might be able to realistically sell. But for future sets, starting with Rebellion, we're going to have the burn mechanic included right from the get go. So the idea is like let the market decide how many packs we sell, not have us try to guess and have too few or too many. So the burn mechanic just basically says, players will just buy as many packs as they want up until a certain time, and then that's how many there will be. So that it'll be exactly the right amount for however many players we have ultimately. Which is just in general the way I'd like to try to do things going forward is try to make it open free market things more so than us trying to like put down numbers. It works better that way, I think. Next question is from my understanding, crypto sentiment is now far more positive in Asia than Europe or the States. Is Splinterlands proactively seeking to expand in Asian markets, or are you just going to focus on the English speaking world? Um, I mean, obviously I'd love to expand in every market, but especially considering the cuts that we had to make today, our focus is really just going to be on building our products out. One of the things that had to go is our marketing team in general. I feel like they were very good, but we haven't been able to give them what they need to really be successful. So it's kind of been a waste in that respect. So I'd love to be able to get into active marketing more in the future. But I ultimately think us building good products and getting more value to our assets is the right thing to focus on, and honestly, the best way we can market, especially in the like crypto, NFT, Web3 world. So we're not going to be focusing on specific markets as much as just building new features and hoping our community also helps to get the word out in all areas of the world. Question about Untamed. Will Untamed leave Modern before the release of Rebellion? And if so, when? No, those are going to go together. Our plan is still, and I'm pretty confident that Rebellion will be live before the end of the year. And at that point, Untamed and all its related sets will leave Modern. I think that's going to be a big deal, also, just generally for the game. Um, and also for helping newer players or players that don't have as much to spend be competitive. Having Untamed leave Modern is going to be big. So I'm very much looking forward to that. The DAO. Could the DAO become a stakeholder in the company by using the currently held stable coins? Is that legally possible, or would you even entertain the idea? Clearly, we are entertaining the idea. I didn't plan on it investing in equity in the company versus hiring the company as a developer, but that is absolutely on the table. Also, the DAO is a legal entity and can invest in things, so that's definitely possible. Um, if the DAO cannot be a stakeholder, how much runway would the currently held stablecoins provide the company in an emergency should the bear market worsen? So I expect we're going to have a lot of runway questions I've been seeing in Discord. I do want to talk about them. I'm going to save that for a little later. So not going to answer that right now. There's some DEC questions. There's a question about the total supply of DEC that's listed both on the Splinterlands website and on Hive Engine and Tribal Decks, the like 25 billion number. I think that's a totally worthless, useless number, and that I would like to get that removed from our website. I mean, I can't remove it from Hive Engine. It's kind of meaningless. The real number is the like 4.6 billion. That's how much DEC there is. That includes every DEC that exists on every different chain or platform or whatever. That's the important number to focus on. The 25 billion is just how much had been totally minted on Hive Engine itself, and then the difference between 25 billion and 4.6 billion is how much has been burned on Hive Engine. So it doesn't include everything that's happened in the game. So I would say just to completely ignore that number, focus on the 4.6 billion number, and we should probably get that removed also from the website to avoid confusion. The second question is about the same thing. Couple land questions. Will we have any info on research points and how they're accumulated before land 1.5 goes live? Will the research tree be per account globally for all my plots by territory or in some other fashion? So research is going to be accumulated in land 1.5 by choosing to produce research on your plots. You can produce grain, SPS, or research. So that's how it will be accumulated in 1.5. In 2.0, there's going to be a different mechanism. It's going to be more difficult in 2.0, more involved. Everything is going to be more involved. So, like I said, research, you get a head start in 1.5 if you want. That's what I'm going to do. As far as there's not necessarily going to be a research tree. Um, but it's going to be per territory. So the idea is that the Secret of Praetoria project is going to be per territory. There's 7 territories, and each region is within one of the 7 territories. So if you generate research on a certain plot, it will go towards the construction project in that territory. So if you have plots in a bunch of different territories, you will be contributing research to different Secret of Praetoria projects. You will still benefit from them, but one might be finished before the other, and then you'll benefit from that one first. So hopefully that answers the question. How much API history for land transactions will there be, and when will it come in the list of land features? Will it be all transactions or limited to what? I don't know on that one. I don't know if Neil, you can jump in, or that's something we can just get to later.
So we already have all the infrastructure built out for this. We just need to add an API endpoint to return the data. Since land operations will be limited in how many you can do a day per plot, I would assume we could probably provide 90 days as a default, whereas, like battle history is 30 days, just because we won't have the quantity of data. So we should be able to provide like a 90-day default data window.
Cool, thanks. Next question is about tower defense. Now that land 1.5 is a MAV server, can we get additional information regarding tower defense game? Overall, I mean, tower defense has been and is on hold for right now. We are definitely planning to release it, but again, I talked earlier about us needing to focus, and that's one of the many things that has been like distracting our focus significantly. So right now we are going to focus on land 1.5 and rebellion and just general land stuff. And as part of going forward, we are going to come up with a longer term solution for how we can make tower defense not only released, but also awesome, right? I don't just want to take it and try to like just throw it out real quick and sort of ignore it because we're focusing on other stuff and not give it the time and attention it deserves. So I know it's already been a super, super long time. I'm very frustrated and unhappy about that, but I don't think the right move is just trying to like rush it out when we're not really able to focus on it. I think the right move is to take some more time and wait till we actually can really give it the attention that it deserves. So when we release something, it's of the quality and focus that everyone who's bought packs deserves. So I apologize again. That has been so long and that everyone's been waiting for so long for that. But again, I have to make the best decision given what I have available right now. There's a lore question. How relevant is the lore to land development and the next rebellion set? Well, I don't know if relevant is the right word. I mean, lore is very important to us. Nate and team comes up with fantastic lore and stories that give a real immersive feel to this whole world. But I feel like generally we initially focus on what's the best product that we can release. What our players are going to like, what's going to be the best for the game, and engagement and everything. And the creative team kind of adapts and builds out the lore around that. So that's how I kind of see it working. Which would be different than if we had IP like a Lord of the Rings game, right? Then like lore would be first and foremost, and we sort of build the game around that. I feel like we're more build the cool Web3 product, and then Nate and his team do a great job of adapting the lore around it.
Now that's not to say that we're not going to try to build a powerful IP like Lord of the Rings or whatever. Maybe someday everyone will know what Praetoria is and the characters in it. But yeah, we everything else Matt said was, I guess I'm just saying that, every meeting I'm going to be there championing to try to, improve the power of our IP and the lore and what it means, and increase an emotional investment for the player. But yeah, in all other regards, I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I would love to see Pretoria themed things in stores or wherever in the future. That'd be fantastic. Um, the last question is a very long one, so I'm going to paraphrase it about soulbound reward cards. And instead of doing soulbound reward cards, reserving a portion of rebellion packs, I guess, to give out instead. Uh, I mean, I would just say, again, without reading through the whole thing right now, I'm kind of open to all ideas. But sometimes when you take a lot of time and kind of go through the ideas, you find that there's a lot of holes or issues with them that make it difficult to implement. So I'm open to other ideas from how to handle reward cards. I think the soulbound cards are working quite well for right now. And that we have like a lot more other high priority things that aren't working quite so well right now to focus on. So, that's something I think we'll look at a little later. But if anyone ever has like ideas of how we could do things differently, I always love to hear them because that's where a lot of our good ideas come from. So that's the end of the pre sorted questions. I guess I'll open it up to questions in the chat starting now. I don't know if we have someone here that can post the normal question thing in chat. Otherwise, I'll just start taking questions that I see. Um, and I have like about an hour to go on with answering questions. I may not get to all the questions considering how many there might be, so I apologize in advance. I will try to do this more in the future and just be available for questions, especially with all these changes in the near term. Okay, so first question I see from Marketable. Will the town hall continue? And two, knowing that this was necessary, what is the percentage of layoffs that are developers? Um, 100% the town hall will continue. I also hope that AgRoad will be able to participate in most of them going forward. I may suggest that they be less often than weekly, just because I'm certainly not going to have time to come on to a weekly town hall. Um, so I might suggest something like monthly, but I'm definitely open to someone like AgRoad or other people in the organization if they want to, do a town square type thing or just generally talk to people in the community on a more regular basis. That's fine. Um, and then the second question about what is the percentage of layoffs that are developers? I mean, only a small percent were developers. The majority were not. We really had to just like focus on the most important things, which is keeping the game running, continuing to reduce expenses, which like some of our infrastructure people do a great job of reducing our server costs and things like that. And then obviously building out our roadmap. So like anything that wasn't very specifically, anyone that wasn't very specifically working on those things, we unfortunately had to let go. But that means the majority of the development team was kept because they're the ones that primarily do those things. It's just the way it is. Question from Rudy Edwards. A big part of why I've been excited about Land has been Aggie's assertion that he was trying to bring the vibe of Civ to the Splinterlands ecosystem. Now that he has no longer got his hand on the wheel, how will the overall philosophy driving Land change? I mean, the overall philosophy is not going to change at all. And like Agrid having his hand on the wheel was less about designing Land and more about operating the company and like all that other stuff. So I worked with Aggie a lot in the initial designs of Land. I'm the one like primarily doing the designs at this point, and have been for a while. So, and I also am a huge Civilization fan. I've been playing since Civilization 1 came out, I think in the 90s. um, so yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's not going to be quite like Civilization, but we use that and other similar games as a lot of the inspiration for what we're doing. So none of that's going to change at all. And I'm sure Aggie's going to still be very, he owns a lot of land and cards and Splinterland stuff. He's not like going away. I just want to make that clear at all. Um, Hurricane's asking, I may have missed something, but what happened to Double Coconut? I thought that they were making tower defense. They are the ones who built tower defense. Nothing happened to Double Coconut. It's just that in order to actually release the game as part of the Splinterlands ecosystem, we can't have a third party just handle that themselves. It takes a lot of like work, coordination between both teams, and that's just what we haven't had the resources and focus to do. So they are sort of they're still working on like fixing bugs and adding some more features here and there, but ultimately it's kind of in a waiting pattern right now until we can really focus on working with them to get it released and get it released properly. um Rivals has a question. Do we see boss monster with the new summoner you add on the battle? Let spawning towers like Quad Killer from Soul Keep helps buff to defeat the boss. I'm having a little trouble understanding the question here. But if it's about boss fights in general, that's something that we hope to add to land in the future. Um, as far as it seems like you're talking about boss fights in tower defense, right now tower defenses, what tower defense is, I don't think we're like adding whole new features to it at this point until we actually get it released and live. But I think I would say I'm open to adding all sorts of cool stuff to tower defense and to land and to Splinterlands that include boss fights. Um, Key to the Gate has a question. In order to maximize the demand of existing assets and cards, pro-human, wild, and separate pro-bot general league would be needed. How do you feel about a 3-league system where there would be pro-human, modern, and wild, and bot league for automated play? This would mean change to white paper and splitting rewards from modern and wild to 3 different leagues, but on the other hand, it would be very advantageous when it comes to asset demand overall, while creating clear league systems satisfying both pro-human gamer and pro-automated play investor types. I guess so. The question is ultimately like, should we add another ranked play mode, like a pro-human wild? Is what I'm understanding the question. I'm not like against that at all, but the more modes we have, the more we split up our player base, and the more likely it is that people can't find battles. So I think what we have right now is actually pretty good in a way where we've kind of figured out how to split up modern and wild. I think that as far as like a demand for assets, like we're looking at things like land and other things we might potentially do to provide the demand for especially the older assets going into the future. So again, I feel like that's something that's like we have it in a pretty good situation now. And so my focus would be on other things for the time being. Byzantinus is asking, will Splinterlands proceed with the anti-bot and anti-battle helper policies that were passed by the DAO and recently added to the terms of service? Will the direction be reversed, course maintained, or things put on hold? No, I don't. I mean, the DAO has requested that. So we plan to honor those requests. Again, things may be delayed. Again, we have a pretty big shakeup in the organization. So, but the plan is to continue to honor those type of requests from the DAO going forward. Question 2 from Biz: what is the latest on the white paper allocated team SPS that never ended up being distributed to any of the team? Are there plans to ever distribute it to any team members, or will it just be a funding source for future proposals? I don't have an answer for that. It wasn't distributed to the team because there of legal concerns around doing that, and there's a lot of issues as far as things being a security or whatever, depending upon how they are given out or allocated. So that's why we just held off. We didn't want to get into any hot water of doing that. I don't have an answer, so there's no specific plans on what to do with that at this time. But that's something also the DAO can submit proposals on what they want to do. There's no issue with the DAO voting to give out that SPS or any SPS to anyone. Uh, so the DAO can feel free to do stuff like that. As the company, it gets a little more difficult. Okay, question from Sound. Can you allow SPS validator owners to be part of beta alpha product testings? Yeah, I think one of the things like the requirements for being a Maverick probably could use an overhaul at some point. I know we've talked about that for a long time. So maybe it's just something like, currently having a certain amount of assets in the game across all different assets or something different. Than just the previous thing, which I think is still in place of having like purchased $1,000 of packs or something. I think that's due for a change, and I would imagine validator node license holders would be a part of that. Question: Weird Beards seem to spearhead the new player experience development and organization of feedback from the actual players. Who will take that over, and how much will those two topics be a focus to the company in the imminent future? So that's a super good question, and I want to be clear. Like, the people we've had to let go are not because we don't think they're amazing, or that they haven't been doing a good job. They like, we're all doing a great job. They were all extremely helpful to the organization. The organization will certainly be worse off for not having them be a part of it. Unfortunately, like, that was not, we, like I said, we really got to a point where we have no other option right now. This absolutely had to be done. And like I said, the focus of the people we maintained, or retained, were the ones who were like absolutely necessary for keeping things running and like getting the stuff out that we've promised to get out. So there were suggestions that like maybe the DAO could hire Weird Beard. That sounds awesome, right? The DAO is absolutely able to do any of those type of things. Doesn't need any permission from us. And As far as like the new player experience and getting feedback from players, yeah, I mean, some of those things may be delayed or fall by the wayside in the imminent future. In the imminent future, we are working on getting land out and working, not just 1.5, but also all the other things that that won't be part of the initial release, and Rebellion. Those are like the imminent future. I'm going to go out and raise money in the imminent future, and then we're going to take a step back and say, okay, well, we need to do a lot more than just get out some features. We need to have a really good new player experience. We need to have really good way of interfacing with our players. We need to have, here's all the things we need to have a really successful company over the next bunch of years. How much is that going to cost? Do we have it? How do we get it? Who are the people that are going to do it? And we're going to like just put together a whole one of the things I plan is to put together a comprehensive plan for all of that stuff, but it is not the like first and foremost highest priority right now for like the end of this year. But it's going to happen. Um,
Can I say something
you go
really
ahead.
quick? Is that it's like take everything that Matt just said, but also consider the fact that we haven't stopped caring. Like there was never a point where we designed and developed and something we said we just don't care about UX, or we don't care about the new player experience or the veteran experience or any of that stuff. Like it's always going to be a priority for us. It's always something that we are concerned with, and I will say that as we figure things out along the way and figure out how this is going to work, then hands down, I mean, don't be surprised if like maybe we take the UX designer, Roy, and you hear from Roy and myself more and more, so that we can get that feedback sooner in the design and development process and let it bleed into how things are rolled out. Because to me, it's not just about new players; it's about all players. The game has so much blockchain and layers to it, and DeFi and this, that, and the other, that even myself, who's been around for 5 years, can I remember all 75 abilities that come on the cards? No, I don't remember all of them. I gotta look them up just like any normal person. So whether you're new or whether you're old, it's good that we continue to polish up the front end so that everyone can have the experience that we want them to have as what was intended. So I will say that in the short term, I think there are some easy things that we could do to make sure that the players are heard. And there's things we've tried in the past, whether it is open up a new Discord channel and just make sure that we're always engaging with that channel just as much as Farpatrod does. A lot of you guys talk about things. Farpatrod hears it, he sees it right there in the channel, and then those things bleed into design development. So whether we have a designated person right there or not, we're all listening. Like I'm looking at Mav's chat and Discord all the time. So is Farpatrod. So a lot of the team members. So whether it's just a channel where we can kind of engage and interact with the community, or whether we go back to that, I think back in the day we used to have a website platform where you would input suggestions, and we would triage them every day and see what makes it into the flow, or assign tasks or developers. Like we'll figure something out. Like don't worry about it just not happening. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I think that's all. I'm not gonna lie and say we have answers to all the questions right now, or I don't know exactly how we're gonna do everything. I know what our very clear short-term goals are for like the next 3 months, and part of those short-term goals is to get us into position where we can take a step back and come up with a plan to answer all these questions in a way that hopefully everyone is excited about. All right. Buns, Bags, and Caps asks, when will tournament partners be announced anytime soon? I'm not currently aware of any tournament partners that we're planning to announce, and that's also not one of my high priority things right now. Um, Question from Icy Flow: will you be joining every town hall going forward, or still periodically? Well, as I said, I'd try to. I think I'd like to reduce the town halls to something like once a month. In which case, I would plan to join most of them. I can't imagine it would be everyone, but I'd like to be present on the majority of them. Question from Intrepid Surfer: so far, how many pages is the Land 2.0 white paper? Good question. I mean, we're not. It's not like It's in Gitbook, so it's not like something where I can just scroll to the bottom and see what page it is. Uh, I'd probably say it's like similar in size to the 1.5 white paper. But also it's like this is sort of the high level white paper that the draft we have ready. So it doesn't include all the like numbers of everything. So that's going to be really, we're going to have like all these different buildings producing all these different resources in different levels. And like sort of the next phase of design, once we have the like core how it works down, is going to be go through like we need to know exactly how much stone and wood it takes and everything else to upgrade every single individual building up to every different level, and how much they produce at every level for every production, and how much everything that goes into all that. So that's going to be a huge like spreadsheeting project that's going to be kick off very soon. So I don't know how many pages. Like I said, I think it's similar in size to the phase 1 paper, 1.0 paper, but it really just talks about the concepts more than anything. um, Question from Dehoda: how do you see your vision of leading Splinterlands different from Aggie? That's a good question, and that's a fair question. I think the core thing, most people probably know that Agrod and I disagree a lot over the course of this thing on the way to do lots and lots of different things. I think at the core of that is like Agrod is an ever optimist, especially when it comes to crypto and crypto prices. I would consider myself more pragmatic in that regard. So he was more right than me in 2021, where I would never have predicted anything that would have happened in the general market or with Splinterlands, certainly not to that level. And I've been more right than him the other times in the market downturns. So I think it has hurt our business. And you know one of the things that contributed to getting us in this situation where we have to lay off people again is that we've sort of been operating on the assumption that the next bull run is right around the corner. So we don't need to cut, we don't need to reduce our expenses. We just need to get that extra revenue in to get us by for another few months. And then, I'm sure you've seen Agrod's like Bitcoin technical analysis and everything. So it's just like, just need to get another few months until everything blows up again and then we're all good. I don't I think that hasn't happened, and since we've sort of been operating under that assumption, it's hurt us. I operate under a very different assumption. My assumption is that the crypto market is going to suck forever. I don't actually believe that. I'm very heavily personally invested in cryptocurrency, and I think it's one of the best investments of all time. But I have to operate the business under the expectation that there will never be another bull run, or if there is, we don't know when it will be. It certainly may not be anytime soon, and we just need to make sure that we are good in that scenario. And so that's my literally going to be my entire focus of life over the next few months, is saying I want to make sure we as a business are totally fine and covered under the scenario where Binance goes under and Bitcoin crashes and all crypto crashes. I want to make sure Splinterlands says, we don't care about any of that. We got plenty of funds, and we're good to go. So that is, I would say, the main thing about how we differ from how we run things. Curious Chester asks, Yaba, you sound so relieved and excited. Nice. Thank you. How soon are you going to attack the inflation of DEC and SPS? What are some of your first steps? Eat more Cheetos. That wasn't one of my first steps, eating more Cheetos, but I'll consider it. Um, Yeah, I'm relieved and excited. I have like every possible emotion that you can think of. Like this is like the crappiest thing that I've ever had to be a part of doing, like laying off people. Last time, like Agrode was more directly involved in that than I was. Now I'm kind of leading that. It sucked. We're in a really difficult position as a company. I feel like very responsible for everyone here. And like I want to make sure that people who have put their trust in myself and this organization like feel like that has been well handled, and that it all works out extremely well. So it's super stressful and worrisome for me, but I'm also relieved and excited in that I feel like finally we're making the changes that we've needed to make for a long time. So finally we're in a position where I think we can deliver on those things that I want to deliver on. So that's about how I'm feeling. As far as attacking inflation of DEC and SPS, well, there's hardly any inflation of DEC. There's the end of season leaderboard rewards. That's it. It's tiny, so I feel like that has been tackled, and there's nothing really that needs to be done. I think we'll get rid of those rewards at some point. Not a priority. Um, SPS certainly has a relatively high inflation. I'm also not sure that that's a super bad thing. So first of all, the Dow is 100% in control of SPS inflation. So anyone who feels like less SPS should be given out in any way, shape, or form, please submit a proposal for that. And if that's what the Dow agrees on, that's what will happen. You guys are 100% in control of that. Um, my plans and first steps are literally announced today. I want to give the Dow ownership of Rebellion, and I want half of the sales of Rebellion to go to the Dow. So that's not necessarily dealing with SPS inflation, but inflation is not as much of a problem if there's a lot of value going into it, which is what I'd like to focus on. So I really think that the goal is to keep a lot of SPS inflation, because the whole idea is like that's why you want cards, that's why you want land, that's why you want to participate in all this stuff, because you can earn SPS. If we take that away, that's going to be a big detractor from like the goal of participating in the game. You participate in the game, you earn SPS. We have to make sure that value flows to SPS appropriately so that it counteracts the SPS that's being given out to people who participate in the game. I mean, one thing I will mention is in Land 2.0, I expect there to be benefits from staking SPS or applying stake to SPS to land, just like you'll apply DEC. So like right now you want staked SPS in order to get more rewards from battles. I plan to have a similar mechanic in Land Phase 2.0, just to give people who are hoarding SPS, which we love, more stuff to use that for, give more reason for people to want to rent delegated SPS to be able to put on their land and get benefits from that. So these are, I guess, the first steps that I'm doing, not to attack the inflation of SPS, but to give more value to SPS to counteract the inflation. Um, Question from Zorilla: is this financial advice? Very good question. It is not. Um, Let me go down. There's some talk going on. Monster Jam Gold asks, was Aggie classified as a layoff? So that's a good. I'm guessing that's a silly question. I hope, but I do want to address it. So Agrode is 100% not being laid off in any way. He is still 100% a very important part of this organization. It's really just splitting out our focuses in the organization. So we, for a while, have been discussing like we really need to separate these two kind of completely separate businesses: the Invenium and Gold Genesis League Goals side of things, and the Splinterland side of things. And we need separate people to run these things. And there was a lot of discussions with the investors and the board of directors on how we should do that. And the best way we kind of came up with was for Agrode, who had been putting a lot of his focus already on the Invenium and Genesis League Goals side of things, um, and me, who have been putting a lot of my focus on the Splinterland side of things. It seemed to be the right way to split this up. So it's just a changing around of priorities and responsibilities. That's literally it. Agrode is obviously still a very important and integral part of this organization. Um, Question: do you have a time frame for when the Land 2.0 white paper might be released? I am shooting for within the next month or so. So I'm looking for October. I wanted it to be even sooner. I wanted it to be like even a little before Land 1.5 was released. But obviously, I have been quite distracted getting ready for all these changes and stuff that have been happening. So we're a little behind schedule, but it's getting pretty close. Like there's only a few more to dos and then get internal feedback. So And as always, like when we release the white paper, it is not going to be set in stone. There are going to be changes, but it should give a pretty darn good overall idea of how everything is planned to work, which I hope everyone will be very excited about. Uh, Meta Mick is asking, how are things between Aggie and Matt? I mean, things are pretty much the same, are fine and the same as they always are. We both understand that this is, what the investors and what the board wants, and that it's probably the best thing for the company. So we are still going to be working together as co-founders, just like each focusing on our different pieces, which will help each of us do better with those pieces, rather than jumping back and forth. Um, Question: how many employees continue to work at the Splinterlands company, and what is their split on departments, HR, coding, artwork, business development, etc.? Let me see what I can pull up here really quick. So first of all, a number of the people that were part of the overall company are going to be going off and being part of the Invenium Corporation. So I think there's six or so people that are going to be part of that. So they weren't included in the layoffs. They're just like moving to that other organization that's again going to have its own separate, accounts and funding and all that. So as far as still being part of Splinterlands, it's a little hard because some of the people, especially on the art team, are like just some part-time contractors that do work here and there. Um, as far as like full-time employees, I feel like we have like, like W-2 type employees. I feel like there's around 20 and maybe like 10 or 15 uh or so other like contractors and things. So we're looking into the 30 to 40 range of like total people that are still on the Splinterlands team. Again, like a number of those are like more like part-time character artists or things like that. But so we still have a decent sized organization here. So again, it's not like, you know, nothing's going to be happening, nothing's going to be getting released, things are going to be falling by the wayside. Some things may be delayed, certainly. Some things that were going to happen may not happen or happen later. But we still have a pretty robust organization, and it's at a level where I feel confident that we can sustain that organization, based on conservative realistic estimates about future sales. Okay, scrolling down for questions. Cutting Edge asks, Matt, what will you personally be focusing on for the rest of this year? Land, rebellion, other. Well, all of the above, I guess. But my real biggest focus, like literally as of tomorrow, is going to be fundraising, right? Because that's the real thing where right now I can't say like if Rebellion really just totally tanks, yeah, we're going to be in trouble, right? If some other things happen, like we could still be in trouble. I realistically don't expect that will happen, and to the best of my abilities and best guesses and estimates, we should be okay. But I really, really just want to raise capital for the company so that we are 100%. I can say, like, no matter what happens, we are good for many years. And we don't have to worry about that. So that's going to be my 100% like primary focus. Obviously, we have a really good team already working on Land and Rebellion. I've done a lot of the designs are already done, so I'm going to work with that team and help get them over the finish line. But they're going to be sort of like secondary focuses. And then I'm going to do my best to not focus on anything other than that. I talked earlier about how focus is so important and not being distracted by lots of other things. So that's really what I'm going to try to do. And like anything else that's not of the utmost importance, I am not going to focus on. Um, Scrolling down from questions. Fat Jimmy has a question. Matt, you have expressed frustration watching this situation unfold for the past year plus. Did you make attempts to redirect the company but got stonewalled via different visions and political directions? I'll just answer that with a yes. I have had some very strongly worded messages in board meetings and other meetings about my differences of opinions about things. You know, it, the I wasn't the one running the company, so I don't say how things worked. But I mean that happens always, right? Not everyone's you're never going to have a situation where everyone always agrees with everyone's. So it's unfortunate. I feel like some of the things I was trying to push through because I was worried or try to stop from happening because I was worried turned out to be true. I really wish that I was totally wrong. But but yes, I can assure everyone here, like, my number one focus. Um, I take very seriously the responsibility that has been placed in myself and our team and our company by the players. This is not like a normal game that I worked in the game industry for a long time, and we've had games that have gotten shut down, and people are like, "Ah, that sucks. I like that game," and then they go on, and that's it. This is not that. Like, shutting down is not an option. Failure is not an option in my mind. Like, I didn't really want to honestly like take over as CEO. Like, I'd much rather Aggroed or someone else do it. For those of you who are wondering, I know this isn't really part of the question, but like, I don't enjoy like going out and trying to raise money. I don't enjoy dealing with financial issues and taxes and legal stuff and like whatever. Like, that kind of sucks. I have no interest in doing that. I'm not looking forward to any of that stuff. But I would never say no to that, because like we need that for this to continue operating and to continue to be successful, and for everyone in the ecosystem to be successful. So I'm more than happy to step up and do it. And my hope is actually at some point that we get to the point where we can bring in someone else potentially to take over as CEO of Splinterlands, and I can go back to focusing more on product design. I don't think that's an option for now or even for the near future, but someone who's just really good and better than me at actually running a business. I think that would be great to have on board. Another question about how many people work at Splinterlands. Like I said, it's between 30 to 40 at this point, which includes some part-time contractors. Question: no time frame, but will we ever get new card skins? I don't want to say for sure. I think card skins are cool and they're something I would like to do, but definitely not on the priority list right now. I already answered the about tournament partners. Um, Question from guy: are you planning to set the selling terms of Rebellion independently, or should the DAO community be responsible to propose quantity, price point, burn mechanics, etc.? There have been suggestions of selling crafting tokens to burn along with older reward or excess cards for new Rebellion cards, which would be interesting. Yeah, I am going to suggest, I have in mind what I would like to propose for the quantity, price point, and all the details of the Rebellion set, which I plan to propose along with the whole proposal to the DAO about Rebellion. Ultimately, if the DAO feels we should do something different, that is, the DAO's prerogative. But at this point, it's sort of like we kind of both have to work together here. So it's not at the point where the DAO can just say whatever it wants and we say okay. Um, it used to be like the company just does whatever it wants and everyone else kind of has to be okay with it. Now we're sort of splitting that responsibility. So we're going to propose something. Um, I hope that the DAO goes along with it. If the DAO ultimately wants to go with something that I and the company generally really feels is not going to work or not going to be good for some reason, like we may choose not to go along with it. I mean, ultimately we're still at the point where we are offering the option for the DAO to own and sell Rebellion. But if like the DAO is not going to work with us, I mean, meaning the community, and potentially make some concessions that we may need as an organization, like we may be forced to go back to just saying, okay, well then we're going to go forward selling Rebellion ourselves. I would be surprised if that happens. I wouldn't expect that to happen. But so that's a very long answer for saying I am going to propose what I would like to do as far as quantity, price point, and all that stuff. And I very much hope that the DAO goes along with it. Because I think that's what we need right now. In the future, though, when we have like more time and we're more set and like the things aren't as up in the air, I would really like to try to find some like more ways where we can be more creative with this stuff. Like Web3 and all these things allows us to be really creative with what we do and do things differently. I'm just not sure now is the right time for that. Dave McCoy is asking, I'm sure the runway issue is on everyone's mind. Can you speak to how these actions extend the runway? So thank you, Dave. I was planning to wait. I expected a lot of runway questions. I'm surprised it took this long. So Yeah, I mean, well, as far as how these actions extend the runway, well, reducing our expenses significantly is like the number one way, other than raising money, that we can extend the runway. So I don't like. Um, I've mentioned that raising money is going to be my top priority for the next couple months, to do that. But otherwise, reducing our expenses is like literally you sit down and you say, how do you increase our runway right now? That's it. And I think one of the things, in the past, one of the things I've disagreed with Agrod about is the kind of definition of the term runway. So the runway that has been talked about in the past was, assuming a certain amount of revenue for the company. So assuming that the company maintained a certain amount of revenue, um, and we maintained a certain level of expenses, then the cash in the bank, or the crypto in the wallets would allow us to operate for a certain amount of time before we ran out of money. Typically, runway is assuming no revenue. And as our revenue not only went down, but also as the value of our crypto holdings went down, our runway kept getting reduced, which really means, in my opinion, it wasn't the accurate definition of the term runway. So I feel like that's why there's been a little confusion or potentially misunderstanding about what's been communicated in the past about runway, and then getting to this position now. So I would like to get it into a position where we have multiple years of like actual runway, where the company can make literally $0 and Bitcoin can go to $0. Even though I don't expect that, and we just literally have actual cash or stable coins to operate the business at our current level of expenses for, a long time. We are not there right now. We are in a much better position. I don't have exact numbers yet, but because of these layoffs and cost reductions that we're doing, we have extended the runway significantly just from that. Um, and then, like I said, I'm also going to try to raise money as quickly as possible to extend it even further. And I am counting on a certain amount of sales from Rebellion. I think they are a low and realistic amount of sales that we should easily achieve. But I am factoring that in, currently, into our runway calculations. I would like to get it to the point where we don't even have to count on anything there. So hopefully that covers that, for everybody. Okay, scrolling down again. Um, okay. Question from Zorilla. Now that you have consolidated power, will we be taking over the world and establishing DEC as the world currency? Yeah, consolidated power just over the Splinterlands product specifically, I guess you could say. So I'm not sure that's enough to take over the world with DEC, as cool as that would be. Um, uh, Question from Dream Rider: how much is the current server cost? I believe it's something around $50,000 a month, which, may sound very high, but it does take a lot to operate everything. And the team has actually reduced that by, I think, more than half, and are continuing to reduce it. So, we're doing everything we can. A lot of the people we kept on are, specifically helping to reduce that, while still maintaining obviously the quality of service that we provide. Um, let's see if there are more questions. I don't know how much farther down I have to scroll. So I'm gonna say I'm cutting off the questions now at 3:40 p.m. Eastern. I don't know how many there are more, but how many more there are, but I'm gonna get to whatever there is, still outstanding between now and 3:40, or between whenever they were posted and now, as many as I can answer in the next 20 minutes. Question from Xantinus: what is the plan for regular Splinterlands tournaments? They run out at the end of the month, and we were due for another time shift. Is someone going to create new tournaments? Yes, we will have to figure out, how new tournaments are getting created. I think, there's been talk about, can Weirdbeard work for the DAO? The DAO is ultimately the one funding and sponsoring the tournaments at this point, so it would be awesome if the DAO also, takes responsibility for creating the tournaments. And obviously, I'd be happy to work with, uh, people in the community or whoever, Weirdbeard, to figure out how that works. Um, Rivals is asking, is chatter gone too? Yes, unfortunately, the marketing team had to be let go. I talked about this a little earlier that they were all fantastic, but we just didn't really, we weren't able to give them what they needed to support them. So like they weren't able to really market effectively. We weren't able to focus yet on the new player experience and all these things. So like I feel like a lot of our marketing efforts and funds were wasted. And so, when we needed to cut and we did need to get, the expenses down a lot, we had to focus on the most core important things. And like I said, going forward, we are planning to kind of put together a comprehensive plan for the longer term about how we not only reintroduce marketing, but how we make sure that the rest of the organization can support them and make sure that they're effective. um, Question from iProto. Could we get some clarification about the terms of service change and how it applies to existing services? Commander Chaos likes to joke about many things not being allowed anymore, but I'm not sure how much truth there is to his examples. Given the excerpt below, does it mean all third-party apps which collect data are not allowed? Splinter boards, splinter cards, etc., various bot services. I mean, I'm not really sure. I actually wasn't a fan of that particular proposal that was passed, because of things like this that make it very difficult. But um, that specific thing that you mentioned says any unauthorized purpose, right? So it doesn't mean that any apps or things that do that are a problem or are not allowed. They're not allowed to do them for any unauthorized purpose, which is not clear also. But ultimately, like, we as an organization, we want to encourage obviously third party apps and third party services. We are going to go with the community's wishes about uh, restricting bots and restricting battle helpers. But it's going to be at our discretion ultimately. So we're not here to like just go, we're not like the SEC where we're trying to like purposely screw over everything and cause problems. Like, we legitimately want this to work well and we want these services to flourish and do very well. So anything that's not clearly trying to provide advantages for people in battles, which is what the proposal was aiming to stop, we would be absolutely okay with. But ultimately, it's up to our discretion, and we're going to do our best to work with the services to make sure everything's all good there. Um, Question from Marshall Mega Marcus. Since the team shrunk, are you considering outsourcing things to the community, like posting contests for new tournament ideas, battle modes, abilities, suggestions, or even some tokenomics or pricing concepts? Since I'm an IP manager for a living, I would like to help with suggestions. I mean, I would say we've always been open to suggestions from the community. Um, I guess, yeah, even more so now. But yeah, I mean, anytime anyone in the community has suggestions or ideas, we'd love to hear from them. I think we'll try. I know we've tried like different ways in the past to sort of formalize that. But one thing people have to be like understanding about is, like, most of the time we are not going to go with those ideas, and it doesn't mean that they're bad ideas or we don't listen to the community or we don't like you. Um, it's just that, again, we have to keep very focused on a few things, and there's a lot of stuff going on internally, that everyone might not know about. So that means we can't always do things that the community suggests. It's actually more rare than not. I think there's been a lot of times where the community has suggested things that were great that got implemented, but when you look at that over the amount of things the community has suggested over the years, it's like a very small percentage that actually gets implemented. So I encourage everyone um, to contribute and add their questions, add their suggestions, all the time, but just with that understanding that you know most of the time we just won't be able to implement them, or not for a while. um so Scrolling down, marketable is asking how many people were laid off, even just a percentage. What is the total cost per month to survive now? If And three is the new player experience is still in the cards, why get rid of the main advocate, Weird Beard? So one, how many people were laid off? I believe it was about 20, um, and with like 30 to 40 people left. you can kind of do the math there on percentages. Um, what is the total cost per month to survive now? I don't have an exact answer of what means to survive. Uh, that's something I don't want to answer. There's it's a little too detailed, but we that was part of our planning in this whole like business plan that we've put together is what we realistically expect we can get from Rebellion and some other things over the next year, and then getting our expenses down so we're break even at that level. So that's how we estimated that. Um, and then the third one, if the new player experience is still in the cards, why get rid of the main advocate? Well, I mean that could go for anyone we've had to get rid of. All of those things are still in the cards. Marketing is still in the cards. Everything is still in the cards. It's just not the immediate priority right now. Like I said, the immediate priority right now is things like land, things like Rebellion that does get us our baseline revenue back, and raising money so that we can go and hopefully be in a position where we can figure out how to do things like the new player experience and all that other stuff the right way. But we just honestly like we might not be able even to get to that point where we can seriously think about that stuff if we didn't get our expenses down. Like that was the number one thing is we had to get our expenses down to that level. So I honestly think like anyone else in this same situation in this business right now would have to make the same call. It doesn't mean we don't think Weird Beard is amazing or that the new player experience is not important. It's just like right now we're in a bit of a crisis situation that we need to work out of to get to the point to fix those other things. Um, Question: any chance of punching in a Q3 promo card for continuity? Pretty please. Well, definitely not in the next 5 days that we have left in Q3. There will, I guess, be a promo card in Q4. We're planning to do a promo card for the pre-sale of Rebellion, like we did with Dr. Blight and Chaos Legion. So, in going forward, we still plan to do some like separate promo card sales, like we have Brazerial and stuff, but probably not in Q4. Probably starting next year. So that's the plan for that. Um, Question from Iron Star: how do you advertise Splinterlands? Currently, we do very little advertising. We've never found that it's been very effective, and it's mostly been kind of a waste of money. It's something we'd like to get back to trying out in different ways in the future. But in the meantime, it's word of mouth, and hopefully increasing asset prices in the future is kind of the best advertising we can do. So you guys go help us by advertising. Um, Question from Nerd Cthulhu: will the success slash failures of Invenium slash Splinterlands not cross borders now? If one fails, the other won't bail the other out, and if one does great, the other won't benefit either. Not 100%, but that's sort of the idea, right? It's really difficult to have a situation where Invenium especially has a lot of these like contracts and deals, and like liabilities and things, and so it's like it would really suck if problems happen there that carry over and screw over Splinterlands players or vice versa. So part of splitting out the businesses is to separate them in that way, but obviously they're still owned by the same group of investors, the same board. Agrod and I are both each respectively running each of those organizations, and we're going to be working together on that. So like if there's a situation where one is really doing bad and the other is in a situation to be able to help, we will certainly do that. But we really want to make sure that they're separated so one doesn't necessarily bring the other down, assuming that would ever happen. But we just need to prepare for that. um, Marketable is asking, no Rondon. Rondon, we would like to still have with the organization and believe he's going to be remaining with us. He's the one, putting on this town hall right now. Um, Question: how is everyone holding up in the team given the news? I don't really know yet. I hope that everyone's holding up well, but this has all been announced today, so this is news to everyone on the team as much as it is to the community. Um, I expect it's going to be a little difficult. I told everyone that I fully, support them taking some time off or just relaxing for a little bit, and then just like coming back and hopefully being ready to go and you know being happy and excited about the future. Um, question: how confident am I in getting the funds? I am very confident. I feel like at some level, at some valuation, it will be well worth it for investors to come into this organization. There's a ton of potential. Um, and I feel like in the past there's been a lot of hesitance to go down on valuation. Um, but we're past that point now where we can really negotiate that much on valuation. So we are gonna see, and we're gonna take what we have available because we need to. So that's a sort of another way that I'm gonna try to do things differently than Agrode or other people in the past. So I'm pretty confident at some level we'll be able to do that. And that'll be, that might be a hard pill to swallow for some of our investors. But ultimately it'll be a great thing for the community. Um, and that's what we need to focus on right now. Question from Flowey: what can the community do to support Splinterlands during these difficult times other than reducing the salt? Can we volunteer as workers for non-essential tasks? Yeah, absolutely. It's volunteering for anything. I mean, there's opportunity. Like the DAO has funds. I think the DAO should be very careful how it spends those funds. Uh, it- you know, just as our company is going to be going forward. But that's an option, and I think it would make sense if people really are contributing. They can contribute just as a volunteer or potentially put DAO proposals. And if it's helpful for the business, I would certainly vote for some things like that. Reducing salt is always helpful. Um, and we even always have left it open to the people we had to let go, that if any of them want to stay on and help out in return for other types of compensation, things like stock options, booster packs, whatever. We're open to those things. Like I said, and I'll repeat over and over, we did not want to let these people go. It's not because they are not doing a good job or not helping the business. And I consider myself extremely fortunate. I've never ever heard of something like this before, where people get laid off but then offer to keep helping out and being a part of it for either as a volunteer or for like some different type of pay. It's just so cool. It shows me that we're doing something really awesome here, that's the case. So yes, anyone, we'd be happy to have help in any way that people are able to contribute. But the main way, I'll say it again, is just like continue to buy stuff, continue to put money into the game. Use land, test things on the test server, tell people about the game, like all that stuff that you guys are already doing awesomely. Like that's actually the biggest help for the game, is buying stuff. And now hopefully with Rebellion, when you buy stuff, like half of that will be going to the Splinterlands company and the other half will be going to the DAO. So you'll be actually like buying it from yourself, half of it. So like that's the biggest way you can help, is get some extra Rebellion packs than you were planning on. Hopefully it will work out very well for you over the long run. Fantasy Crypto's asking, with the future proposal speaking to raise 250K from the DAO, how is this amount determined, and how much runway is this expected to cover? So the amount was determined. I did some calculations on like how much it might actually cost us to like build and release Rebellion, like with the artwork, and the developers and the team members that are working on it, and like you put all that together for the few months it takes to release it and put it out. And I came to a rough estimate of around $250,000. I don't want to like overcharge the DAO. I want to have this be like a realistic relationship of like, if the DAO was hiring a company to do this, what's a realistic cost to do something like this? I guess it may be a little on the high end, because it's going to help the company out. Um, and how much runway is expected to cover? I mean, just 250K by itself is not going to cover very much. Like that wouldn't even be a month of like all of our expenses, I don't believe. But again, we are realistically going to get some revenue. So we still have a decent amount of funds in the bank. We're not like bankrupt. We're not out of money. We have money, and the reduced expenses will help that last longer. Um, we also expect that there will be revenue from Rebellion. I'm estimating conservatively and low, but that's still a decent amount, based on my best estimations. So the 250K, is not itself like going to save the organization or everything, but it'll definitely help, and it will be like kind of a realistic type of contract between two similar organizations, which is what I want to get to going forward. And obviously, if it really comes to a situation where we just can't raise money, Rebellion totally tanks, then yeah, we can always go and do a new proposal to the DAO for more funds or different ways of doing things. I also, one thing I want to mention is I'm thinking about also going to the Hive DAO and seeing if there's any way we can, get some type of funds or grants from there, because obviously it's like pretty important to the Hive blockchain and that ecosystem that Splinterlands continues to operate and succeed. So I think that's, there's a bunch of different options. I'm kind of leaving no stone unturned for how we can get funding for the organization. I think the 250K from the DAO will be sufficient for now, and there's no reason if it's not, like we couldn't go back for more in the future. So I'd like to. That's my best uh, my best proposal that I'm putting forth. Um, Key to the Gate is asking SPS nodes and testnet. Is the plan still to run tests on GLG side first and then move to Splinterlands after these changes? I mean, yeah. The tech and the code that's being built for GLG side is exactly the same, or very very similar to what we're going to be using on Splinterlands. And that's getting pretty close to be ready to go. It's much simpler because it doesn't have a whole existing product that needs to be transitioned over. So yeah, we're gonna see how it goes over there, and get the bugs and kinks out, and then move it over to Splinterlands. Um, there's a question from Store 2 who missed the last half hour. Any love for Soulkeeper? Just more hold on tight. Right now, it's just hold on tight, but we're not letting it go. It's definitely an important thing. It's just not the highest priority right now. Oh, I see that was answered by other people, so that's great. All right. This is going to be the last question until investigator helpfully said no more questions. RuneGuard Bitcoin Sig has asked, since we can back into a price for any set, i.e., you need 10 million, 2 million packs, then pack prices need to be $5. What is the realistic range for for what the company needs to get? Um, so yeah, so I mean, we can say we need $10 million, so we'll sell 2 million packs at $5. But that doesn't mean we'll actually sell 2 million packs, right? So um, that doesn't really help us, just like backing into it like that. So it's actually comes down to how many packs that we ultimately sell. So my thinking is that we would have a high number of packs for Rebellion, similar but probably less than Chaos Legion, but with a burn mechanic. So we ensure they're gone after roughly a year or so. So my expectation is that there'll be far fewer packs sold. So I think something in the 2 to 3 million packs is reasonable to estimate will get sold over a year um, of Rebellion, and I expect the prices to be similar to Chaos Legion. But then we also need to factor in my hope that 50% of that will go to the DAO. So you can kind of back out that math to get an estimate of how much I'm looking for the company to bring in revenue. Now, that's not our only revenue source. Obviously, we do things like promo card sales. We do have market fees and things like that, potions and things. So but that will be the bulk of it. So yes, we can. I did back into the price sort of for a set, but I can't just back into any number to say, oh, we need $50 million, so we'll sell 10 million packs at $5 a pack. That doesn't mean we'll actually get that. So that's it for now. It's exactly at 4 o'clock, so the timing worked out very well. Thank you, everyone. I know this kind of sucks. I know things are up in the air, but I really do think like this is what needed to have happened. I think it needed to have happened a while ago, but it's happening now. And I'm just excited to not have to deal with some of the problems and difficulties that we've had over the past year that have kind of caused this. And I really hope that the community is on board, because I do think we get out of this and we find that we've just gotten ourselves into a much better situation for everyone involved. So, I'm sorry that these things have had to happen. I'm sorry that it had to be, it's always so sudden, but we kind of need to do everything quickly and at the same time. Um, Now we're going to move forward. So thank you, everybody, and we will let you know when the next town hall is scheduled as soon as possible.
When chaos reigns and hope is lost, when your darkest days aren't saved by the dawn, we bring the light to help guide the way. We are with you. We are the Rift Watchers. When your enemies have spread far and wide, when you're out of places to run and hide, follow the runes, help is on the way, we stand with you.